Hey everybody, and welcome to the review of last night's CVR World Cup race. First of all, I'd just like to apologize because there was no live stream. If you are one of the people that were supposed to be webcamming in, or if you were Beth who was supposed to be co-commentating with me, you would have seen through VMix me jumping around and punching the table like, why is nothing working? And I apologize, but to my rescue, we did have Casey Shum race the CVR World Cup preseason last night, and he's very kindly allowed me to use the footage that he recorded last night and streamed live on Twitch, YouTube, and Mixer to review and talk about the racing that I and so many other people did not get to see last night on the new Fantastic Alien Sea course. So, in this video, with the race about to start in 10 seconds, I want to just walk through it. First time watcher. I've yet to watch this race. This is my first impression, first review of what happened last night, and I guess this is one way to do a commentary. So straight out of the gun, this is exactly what Chris Pritchard saw as well yesterday. When he started up Fantastic Alien Sea, there was just a bunch of Chris Pritchards until he caught his own tail, which then caused the game to unfortunately crash. But we are in closed beta. It's still very, very early on into CVRcade's life cycle, so bugs like this are expected to happen. But you can see for now, Chris is still in the race. So early on in the race, Sebastian Kuhn has gone off the front, it looks like. He's gone on to an early attack 5 seconds up the road. So one thing you should pay attention to is that Casey does not have this option toggled on. If you see the bottom right, he doesn't have the front option toggled on the riders nearby list, which means he only sees X amount of riders in front of him and behind him. Me as a spectator, I need to see the front at all times, so I have the front one ticked on. But if this is indeed correct, and what it looks to be, if you go back, it looks like, I'm just going to make double check that nothing is wrong here, that my eyes are not deceiving me. Did Seb just attack out of the gate? So where is Seb? Seb is there. Seb is, of course, near the front. 1,000 watts out of the gate. 900, 950. So yes, Seb Kuhn did, in fact, out of the gun, do a cyclocross start and just gave it something. Back to the front. You can also, the way I knew that was kind of happening is looking at Casey Shum's mini-map down here, you can see that we have Seb Kuhn who's up the road on the Fantastic Alien Sea. This is the first time we've used it in competitive play, so I was really bummed not to... Ooh, that was a close one for Casey. He almost crashed hitting Timothy. I was quite bummed not to be there and watch it live as it unraveled, because the course, when you look at the map in the bottom left-hand corner of Casey, is that you'll see it's just a very long drag. It's 2.3% now. You'll find the gradient here. You'll find the map profile here, but it's up to about 2-3% all the way to the top, and then on the descent it's about -5, -6%, and it's quite technical because you can only do about 40 kilometers an hour on the descent, and you have to be very careful. But it looks like the racing happening right now is that Seb is up the front. He races for Team CCC. Then we have Team Cade with Rig Woods and Frank Garcia working together. Casey is also part of that squad, of course. Then you have Peter Kastrup, member of CCC, sitting in and just marking moves. Casey at this point, I believe I heard in the post-race briefing yesterday that he set a new FTP, or he was close to setting a new max effort power, so that's quite impressive. A lap is 2.3, is it? I think it's, oh, that might be Ben's course. I think a lap might be 2.7 actually out on course on this. Timothy Tamont here comes flying by. We've yet to come to the top. I'm really intrigued to see what happens when we get to the top. Everyone moves to the left here. Homer's in this group. Quentin's in this group. Renee is still here. Nigel is here. He's physically. Only it's Kayla is dropped, and Chris unfortunately had a bug. So Timothy's now gone off the front. He's doing about 300 equalized watts, but he's going to be... Ooh, Casey. He's playing it so... Yeah, I was about to say playing it very dangerously. Let's go back there a second. Frank Garcia hits his own teammate. I know he's going to be kicking and screaming as that happens. So Casey should have hit Quentin there, didn't. Same thing happens to Frank. So Frank's speed is now down to 0. You can see him here, he's slowly accelerating. This is his speed. So he's using his uncrashable to get back on. He maybe should have considered using a comeback kit, but he's with Nigel, so I'm pretty sure that him, Renee, they come back again. At least they should be able to come back on the descent. So we're on the descent now, and if you pause it here, let's pause it here. We're on the descent. The gradient right now is -3%. This is the first of 7 times they're going to be taking this descent. It's this right here, but it's just 2 loops. I think it's this major loop, and then it goes into this smaller loop, and then it goes back out again. But with the speed they're going, which is 53 kilometers an hour, it is dangerous. You can slide out and you can crash into other people. And I think what Casey's doing here is that he's staying on the outside of everybody. So when you slide, ooh, yep, Timothy Tamont was really lucky not to crash. You can see Casey, in fact, did crash. He got a bit too trigger happy as Homer crashes into the back of him as well. It's quite exciting racing last night. You could see Frank used his comeback kit, and now, again, I'll remind you that we are stuck, quote-unquote, stuck on Casey's point of view for this review, as I did not have the option to click around because I was not broadcasting. So he uses uncrashable. He ups the wattage, and in this race, you were given an uncrashable power-up every 480 seconds in this. The uncrashable power-up makes it so that, pretty self-explanatory by the name, is that you cannot crash. You will still slide out, and you still cause other people to crash as Casey catches up to his avatar. It looks like Sepp Kuhn has also been caught on the descent, so he took a more relaxed approach, whereas Casey crashed. Maybe even Sepp Kuhn also crashed, because if you've not done the reconnaissance, if you've not checked out this course, if you haven't gone through the corners at the maximum speed you're allowed to do, you're going to crash. I said this in the preview of the Fantastic Alien course when I published that yesterday prior to the race, is that if you don't watch this video, if you haven't physically gone on and ridden the course and tested the corners, you will be at a massive disadvantage for the first 2 or 3 laps, because then what happens is after the 3rd lap, everyone settles in, you know how much you can do, how far to the edge you can push it, and then that initial advantage is gone. Something that was hinted at in the briefing yesterday or in the meeting, or I mean just thrown up in the air after the races were all done, is that we should have some sort of like race where you don't know which race is going to be or what course is going to be. Everyone sees it for the first time, and then it's whoever learns the course the quickest is going to win the game. I'm just reading the chat here, because there's not very often you see you don't have the pleasure of actually reading the chat when you're doing a broadcast like I do, because I'm so into the production, into everything. When you see Matcha CH2 says, feels like a 2-player game. One should be pedaling and one should be moving the character. That is one way of doing it, but I have done that in the past, and that's not so fun. Like, you can do it that way if you want to, but you want to be in control of your avatar. So now we're seeing Casey Shum working with Rig Woods. They are teammates. Rig is sitting at the front at 370 equalized watts as he moves to the right. You can see Rig's equalized watts. Now Casey, they've probably done some sort of voice communication there. You can see Casey he's got the audio. He's got his hand on the keyboard, and he'll be talking to Rick. He'll be talking to Frank, saying, okay, Rick, thank you. My turn in the front. You get in, and you go again. So we have a 2-man move up the front here. We've just done 1 lap of racing. Now we're on to the 2nd lap of racing, and Quentin Molyneux and Timothy Tamont are trading blows in the front. They're both Belgians, and they're both from my team, which is Team Cycling Hub. But you'll see Casey coming back, you'll see Peter coming back. And this is the sort of course that just slowly saps the energy out of you, because you have to go really hard uphill. That's where the difference is made. That's where the gaps are created. And then on the descent, you can somewhat ease off the pedals and recover, but mentally you have to stay on, because you have to make sure you are braking into the right corner. You have to choose the right lane, which is incredibly important on this. As you can see now, we're coming up to it. Casey still sitting at about 100% of his capacity, 360. Quentin is upping the pace in the front. You can see Peter is also sitting on the wheel of Casey, and now we've started to go downhill. And in Cade, you do get the feeling when you're going downhill where you start losing the resistance on the smart trainer. So it's actually becomes quite normal, just quite intuitive to just stop pedaling and try and lean into the corners and hit the brakes and, sit up straight and try and get some air back into the lungs. We'll see. It looks like Peter's left Casey here in the dust. Is he going to crash again? Is he? Oh, Peter crashed. Casey just hit the brake button in time to not crash. But you do get 1 comeback kit, I believe. You get 1 comeback kit. Oh, we're going to see Casey again. No, he's not going to crash. He's on it now. This is the point. This is what I meant by having the initial advantage. So Quentin Molyneux, Timothy Tamont. Oh, again, very close. But no, you can see him braking. Again, if we slow this down, if we go back a second and then we slow it down, what you'll notice is if you look at this speedometer right here, you can just barely see it as he comes into this right-hand turn. But keep an eye on this place there. You'll see it go red. This is him pressing the brake button. And the further that red is, the heavier he's pushing down, the harder he is braking. Let's speed it back up again. Not many people notice that, but Casey, that initial advantage that Timothy and Quinton had from doing the reconnaissance, for spending an hour the day prior to this race on this course, trying to do an all-out effort, seeing how quick they can go around, how quick one lap is, and then at specific parts of the course, doing specific efforts to see how hard they can push it. So now Casey's left alone. He's got no one to draft. You can see him just taking the towel and getting the sweat off. He now has to commit to this. He has to either go to the front and try and catch up with Quinton and Timothy, or he has to wait for Peter Kastrup, who's 4 seconds back with Rick Woods. At this point in the race, you can pretty much count these people out, I assume, because you only get one comeback kit. And on this course, unlike Road High Desert, it's really tough to get a concerned effort going, especially when you are using a comeback kit. It's like there's no straight road, and comeback kit is very linear. It just brings your speed up to X amount, and when you get to X amount of speed, you will crash into a corner. So you have to be very strategic in how you use it, and in doing so, it's not the easiest to close down a 20 or even a 30-second gap, 45-second gap back to Frank Garcia. Looks like Peter Kastrup has also just caught up. I heard from the analytics team that Peter Kastrup improved his best ever power on Cade by about 20 watts yesterday. So, of course, his equalized watts will be higher in Cade. But the next race he does on Cade, he will have to go even harder to get to this point now. So we'll see. I'm really impressed with Quinton and Timothy. They've really nailed it at this point. I've yet to see them take turns. Every time I'm looking at the right-hand side, all I see is Quinton on the front and Timothy drafting. And that does seem to be the thing that I would expect to happen, but it may not be the smartest of choices, because if Quinton did 360, or just above, if he did 400 equalized watts on the front for 10 seconds or 5 seconds, then came off in a turn, took a right-hand turn, let Timothy Tamont come in, and that way, but they don't seem to really be doing it that way. Now, another thing we don't really get to experience that often with Road High Desert is lapped riders. We have Ken Jal, who's out on course right now. She's been lapped, but she's still a physical rider, so the riders have to maneuver around her. And as these riders go through and lap Peter Wink, Haseeth, Ikea Laguna, Frank Garcia, Nigel Doyle, well, they're going to have to move around, especially on the descents. On a descent, you're pretty much guaranteed to slide out if you're pushing it to the edge, a bit like real life. But if you push it to the edge and you keep it on the edge and not go over the edge, it's allowed. But if there's a rider who's actually already on the edge of the corner when you're coming into it, you'll hit said person, and that will cause you to crash. And these are things to consider. So we have 12 kilometers to go now. You can see Casey's face is obviously suffering. Top right-hand corner, CVR World Cup. 19 kilometers in total. They've done about a third of racing now with 12 kilometers to go. Now, Quinton Molinés and Peter Kastrup has gone off the front. Timothy Tamont, he doesn't really... I'm a massive fan of Timothy, good friend of mine. He doesn't really like to suffer that much. He likes gaming the game, so he likes to get into a draft and sit there for a while. He's not the type of guy that says, right, today I'm going to do a 20-kilometer TT because I want to. No, he wants to get on a race, try to do as little as possible, and still win. So it looks like Quinton has just been chasing Peter. He's still in front of Peter at this moment, but if you look at their equalized watts on the descent, they're just cat and mousing now, just trying to keep it all the way. So at this point, though, the descent, it's no longer that technical. There's this last corner that I did hear them talk about in the post-race meeting yesterday, that the last two right-handers into the finish line are quite tricky, and if you don't take them with caution, that could happen. You see Casey, though, every time just hitting, replay it on YouTube at about 25 speed, and just look every lap when we come into that corner. Look at the speedometer. Look at exactly this moment. I'm not going to stop it every time, but you can too. So on YouTube, in the bottom right-hand corner, you can change the speed to 25%. And just look at this widget. Look at this right here, and you'll see this thing will go massively red as he breaks into it. And then when he gets through the corner, he accelerates again like a proper cyclist. So 10K to go. We can speed it up a tiny bit now. This is what happens this is why we did Road High Desert for so long. Because the group riding and group racing dynamics in Cade are yet to be completely fine-tuned, and we've now gotten them to a point on Road High Desert where we're comfortable having races on there, and they'll be competitive and they'll feel like a proper road race. on something like this, with a fantastic alien sea and with the abundance of power-ups and the different power curves in the game, you need to do so much testing in order to have it be a viable racing environment. So, I mean, the crown jewel of CVRcade and the CVR brand is the CVR World Cup. And for us to get to that point and be able to have more than just Road High Desert, we have to do so much play testing on the different races. And it's not until you've done the same course 10 times, and that's not until then you have a solid understanding of how the race pans out and what power-ups do what, and the power curves gets tuned in, and maybe this guy was a climber but he didn't know all along. So we'll see. Now Rick Woods at this point has used a comeback kit, so you should see his speed is 50 kilometers an hour. We'll slow it back down again. So Casey has now caught Timothy, and there's a 20-second gap up to Peter and Quinton. They both still have their comeback kit to use, so they should be able to catch up. But the question is, where do you use it? Because I'm looking at the loop-de-loops that are in the course down here. You want to use it on this stretch. You want to use it on the uphill, and you want to use it on the longest flat, like straight piece of road. But where you use it is a good question. Looks like Rick is now run out of his, and he come out about 10 seconds behind this group. He is going a bit faster, but the last 10 seconds, he's going to have to close himself, and that's a point that hurts. I mean, you can see the heart rate gauges. The reason why this is not all the way up here for Peter, by the way, is there's a blip in his data. So what happened with Peter on one race is his heart rate went like this, and then it went all the way up, and it went back like this. And this point is like 240. Which, of course, is going to mess with the data. So what's not shown in the heart rate gauge over here is the fact that Peter should be here. He should be at this point in the graph. So everyone in the front are having similar heart rate gauges. So Quinton is pretty far up, but he's now in the descent, meaning he's resting. Heart rate's coming back down, getting ready to go up again. Casey is resting a bit now. He's coming down again. But it's just non-stop. Like, it's one of the toughest courses you can do by looking at this, because it's split up into intervals. You have the interval, which is up the hill, and then you've got I guess it's like a 4 minute, so the total lap is about 4 minutes, and it looks like it's a 3-minute interval on, where you give it everything, and then you have about a minute on the descent and on the flat road to recover, and then you go again, and you do that for 20 kilometers in total. Did Quinton just crash? How did Quinton get dropped by Peter? Let's go back and see how that happened. So there's a gap between them now that I did not see. So 1 second here. Let's speed it up. Let's keep an eye up here because we can't really see them. So we're going up. There's 1 second between them. 1 second. And as soon as Quinton is going to lose the draft, yeah, it looks like it was an attack. 800 watts, 3 seconds. Quinton is yet to go to 0, so he has not crashed. But it looks like Peter is doing this thing where he goes to a high wattage, then down to a lower wattage, similar to what Leandro Messinio has perfected in another virtual cycling platform game. But we're seeing Peter do the same thing in Cade. So accelerating, bring it down, and now he's got a gap of 10 seconds on Quinton, and we've got 8 kilometers to go. And Quinton is going to be in a world of hurt now, because what's he going to do? Is he going to stay on the is he going to keep up the pace, or is he going to bring it down and wait for Casey and Timothy to come back? But it also looks like, looking in the rear view mirror of Casey has dropped Timothy. This is Timothy here. Timothy's 1 second back, so he's out of the draft. Casey is going at it now with 7 kilometers to go. So it's a really bad position to be in if you're a cycling hub, because you have Quinton 13 seconds up the road. You have Timothy Tamont fighting to get back on. He's just about to be back on the wheel, as you can see in the rear view mirror. But what did they do? Speed it up again to find out just that answer. Peter Kastrup, 30 seconds up the road, still fighting, still going. I'm sure the analytics team is still having an interested look in it, because it's interesting. And if you're watching this, Peter, let us know, like, in the name of fairness and gamesmanship and CVRcade, CVR World Cup, how are you doing this, man? Considering it's all equal, seeing somebody of that caliber going that high, you must have just gone that much deeper yesterday, that if you did set a new FTP of 20 watts above, well, then of course you're going to see the power curve adjust. But I would love to hear from you in the comment section below. What is your strategy when you're racing Cade? Because I know it was meant to be for the broadcast yesterday. You were meant to be on with your web camera, and that way we could see how you ride and how your paint face looks. I mean, we get to see Casey, you've seen Timothy, you've seen Quinton, and they're all a mess at the end of this, as Timothy's now on the outside, 6 kilometers to go. Quinton made the decision to stay out there and make Casey pace, and it's clever. So that is the right move. So with Timothy just having to sit on Casey's wheel, so Timothy should never take a turn here. Timothy should stay put, sit on Casey for all eternity and do nothing else. Meanwhile, what Quinton should do, and which he is doing, is stay on the pace. If Casey wants to catch back on, then Casey needs to do FTP effort or above. And it does look like that's how it's panning out now. And this sets it up perfectly for when Quinton eventually gets caught. Then Timothy counterattacks because he should be that much fresher than Quinton and Casey because they've both had to work mano a mano. Meanwhile, Timothy has just sat in. 5Ks to go. We'll speed up. We've got 2 laps to go now as well. At some point, Casey's going to have to try and shake Timothy because he's a bike rider. He gets it. He understands. He's going to need to attack and see if he can get Timothy off his wheel, because the way he's doing it right now, he's catching one Cycling Hub member, but he's bringing the other Cycling Hub member back into the front. Rick Wood still further down. At this point, we still do have the comeback kit in play for all 3 riders, and it'll be interesting to see how they play that one out, because I think the first one to pull the trigger on the comeback kit will also be the person that loses. That will be interesting. 4Ks to go. Second last descent of the fantastic Alien Sea course climb. Gap to Quinton is going out now, 15 seconds. He's digging deep. I mean, Quinton Molinez knows how to suffer. 15 seconds to Casey. It can be caught if you have a comeback kit, but with Timothy Tamont sitting on the wheel, getting 10-20% draft, I hope. Otherwise, he needs to go back into the workshop. Catching Peter Wink here. Here comes Casey again. Going around Peter Wink, 14 seconds to Quinton. We're about to come to the last level racing. And if you compare, at this point, if you compare the heart rate gauges, Peter, of course, is a blimp. It should be further up. Quinton is dying. Casey is dying. Meanwhile, Timothy's sitting here. So he's got all this to play with still. And so far, they've played it to perfection. So if I do make a prediction, at this point in the race, Timothy Tamont is the main favorite to win the race overall. But, of course, just being the favorite is not enough. You have to actually produce the power, be in the right wheel, the right time, and not crash. And now he's actually just been distanced. He's going to have to do 800 watts. He gets back in, and here we go. Somebody ring the bell. We're on the final lap of racing tonight in the CVR World Cup. And it looks like Quinton here. Let's just go back. Quinton, on the last lap of racing, uses his comeback kit. And I think he does this in the beginning because this is the easiest section. The first section is like a long, bendy right, and he uses it here. So he's going to have 45 seconds of comeback kit. But how does Casey play this? So in case you don't know, comeback kit gives you 367 equalized watts more than what you're already doing. So Quinton right now is doing this plus 367 equalized watts for as long as this animation is going. And so that should, of course, bring up his speed. And if you compare the speeds, it's 52 versus 40. That is a significant difference, and the time gap is going out. But if you did listen before, I did predict the first to use the comeback kit will also be the first to... Oh, did Quinton just crash? No, he just... Wait. No, Quinton. Did he just crash? So keep an eye on this. This is the speed. Yes, he did. How did he crash? Quinton Molinez managed to crash uphill due to the fact that he had comeback kit on. He did not need comeback kit. And you can see Casey was just on audio. Go back again. This is the most important point, most important lesson for Quinton to learn. Casey's on the microphone now saying, Quinton has crashed. I can get back on. Let's do this. Give me updates. And so Quinton did not need to pop the comeback kit. He did not need that whatsoever. But in doing so, he stopped all momentum. And now he has to fight to get back on. Now, next time when Casey pops his, Quinton is not going to have anything to react with. So now the next match is between Casey and Timothy. And we've got 1K to go. This is where you can see the red dot here is Casey on the minimap on the climb. He's got this distance to go. It'll be very interesting to see when he uses his. And of course, the distance to go is for Peter. It's not for Quinton. It's not for Casey. They've got a bit more. Also for Timothy, they've got a bit more. But so far, it's been excellent racing out of the course, and it's still all up in the air. Casey injects a bit of pace, comes into the corner. They're going to come into a left-hand loop here. How is this going to pan out? I can't tell. It's about a kilometer to go here, a kilometer and 100 meters. I think Peter Kastrup is already on the descent at this point, about to come into the finish line. You'll see him raise his arms in the air and be victorious. But the real match is between Quintin Molyneux, who of Team Cycling Hub, Casey Shum of CVRcade, and Timothy Tamont of Team Cycling Hub. 7 seconds up to Quintin now. 6 seconds. It's coming down. Quintin is dying a million deaths. And here goes Casey Shum over the top. 600 equalized watts. You can see him pushing down with a purpose now. He's actually distanced Timothy. Timothy Tamont 2 seconds down. It's going to be too close to call. This is going to come down to the descent. Whoever plays this descent the best is going to win it. Here they go. As they crest the top, they have a bit of respite at 0% gradient. Who is it going to be? It's been a solid 26 minutes of racing on this course. You've done everything right to this point. And Timothy Tamont pops his comeback kit here. Oh, that's gonna be tough because he's gonna have to break into every single corner to avoid doing a Quintin. Here you go. Casey Shum bridging the gap. He's with Quintin now. This is the distance to go. This is the finish line. This is where they are. That's like 300 meters now. Coming into the right-hand turn. Quintin is poised, but Timothy Tamont is going to come around. He's going 61 kilometers an hour, though. Timothy Tamont is going to crash on this. No, did they take each other out? What happened? Oh, Timothy Tamont. Look at that. And then Quintin, too. No. Oh, they gave the victory to Casey. Look at... Let's go back. Let's dissect that. That deserves... Oh, my God. If anyone's ever seen the TV show You've Been Framed, that feels like this moment. Go back again and slow it down. If you got to this point of the video, I do applaud you, but you've made it to the best part. I need to make a highlight of this. This needs to be a single video. So here we go. On the descent, Timothy Tamont pops his comeback kit. Questionable because he's going 60 kilometers an hour into a corner that does not support it. So what's going to happen now is he's going to hit this and crash. Roll the clip. He goes. He hits the outside. He crashes. That's predictable. Now, what Quintin is doing is Quintin is going 47 kilometers an hour because he's panicking with Casey behind him. And what he's doing is, as the momentum is bringing him outwards, he's trying to turn inwards. And the way that CVRcade works is if you're going over the speed allowed for this lane and you try to enter into it, the game will crash you. So keep an eye on Quintin. Here he goes. Here he goes. He's sliding out. He's sliding out. Instead of braking, Quintin decides to go inwards. Let's play it full speed. Here we go. Timothy Tamont. He's going to hit the wall out here. There he goes. They're very lucky not to hit each other as well. Quintin Molyneux, instead of braking, he panics. He hits this. And now look at Casey's face. He's about to laugh. He's had the win. Boys. And then also, of course, Casey has the uncrashable to rub salt in the wounds. But that was the CVR World Cup. That was funny. Look at the chat. Puckers. What is this? Yep. Keep Timothy Tamont at bay. It's called CVRcade. That's fun. That's proper cycling esports. Single mistake after 27 minutes of racing will cost you the race. Lesson learned for Quintin Molyneux and Timothy Tamont. They even both had uncrashables as well. Rookie mistakes, great racing. Thank you for watching. I will see everybody, all of you, next Tuesday, next Thursday, when we're going to be doing more racing on the Road High Desert course, more racing on this course because it looked really enjoyable. But until then, have a good one.